My relationship with transgenderism is mostly askew from the average American. California, more specifically the Bay Area, has a lot of LGBT voices just waiting to be heard, but that doesn't always provoke the best discourse. Before I start, I don't consider myself transphobic. I have no hatred or distaste with the idea that men can change themselves to be a woman, and women can change themselves to be men. I've dated several transgender people in my life, and honestly, the topic of transgenderism rarely comes up. My goal going into this video is not to make a hit piece on transgenders, but rather articulate my thoughts on this oh-so-controversial topic. Some of the memes that stem from the acceptance of transgenderism are disgusting, and I will be discussing that. Chapter 1. Discourse. Discourse involving transgenderism is rubbish. When I talk to conservatives, they often jump to extreme examples such as, I identify as an attack helicopter.
As for the attack helicopter example, I think that is somewhat of a slippery slope because I don't think anyone is going to identify as an attack helicopter.
Sir,
but,
come on. Like, we've seen what's going on here. We see, I'm not sure if you follow the account Libs of TikTok. I've seen people go on TikTok and they're dead serious and say, my pronouns are it and them.
This is a meme from like 7 years ago, and I really don't feel like humoring it, but I will. It's a slippery slope that sadly is coming to fruition. I have yet to see people say they are literally attack helicopters, but people, in my life, are identifying as things I've never heard of. It is because of people like this, conservatives continue to point to the extreme example of attack helicopters. Other conservatives will just laugh at me when I'm asking real questions, or call me a fag or a tranny. Unfortunately, living in the Bay Area, it's difficult to find conservatives to talk to in real life, due to cancel culture and conservatives living closeted lives at risk of losing their jobs. So I'm essentially limited to online discourse, but I really don't feel productive going into it. Trans people are often no better, especially online. Matt Walsh, for everything I hate about his rhetoric, posted a really good question. What is a woman? And when I ask this to trans people, they immediately jump to the idea that I'm some crypto bro Andrew Tate Jordan Peterson goon. But, unlike Matt Walsh, who asked the question with the intention of making a hit piece, I genuinely want to understand. But far too often do I get a horrible answer from trans people. A woman is anyone who wants to be a woman. And of course this is a circular definition. It's entirely possible that the transgender movement is going to move forward with this narrative. And let me just say to all my trans homies out there, you got another thing coming. But with this essentially hollow definition of the crux of the issue, I often feel unable to make progress among discourse with trans ideology. If you, yes you, the viewer, want to discuss or debate your idea of this subject, I would be glad to talk with you no matter your political stance on said subject. Chapter 2. What is transgenderism? I have to believe that transgenderism is a genetic phenomenon. I believe in the male and female body and brain. To be clear, yes, there are physical biological differences between male and female. The male brain is more in touch with physical activities, and is such complemented by a body that responds better to exercise. The female brain is better at nursing, caring for children, and as such is given a body that complements such skills like soft skin and breasts. Where transgenderism fits into this is when a male brain is born into a female body, or a female brain is born into a male body. This could provoke, and often does, years if not decades of a wide range of irrational emotions. I think one of the things that makes transgenderism so controversial is how hard it is to diagnose. There's a wide range of mental disorders that have similar symptoms to untreated transgender thoughts, and I've also never met a trans person who doesn't have another unrelated mental illness, be it big or small. This could of course have no correlation to transgenderism and perhaps reflects greater on industrial society. I believe that trans people suffer from an incorrect brain placement, but because this is a biological phenomenon, I don't believe in creating one's own pronouns. I think this part of the transgender movement is ridiculous, not necessarily reactionary, but certainly opportunistic. Language, specifically English, is objectively a social construct, and thus creating new pronouns can't be biologically reaffirming. It is things like these that feed the conservative voice and anti-trans rhetoric. I also believe that many people, specifically youth, are being coaxed into transgenderism. Not only is transgenderism popular, the ambiguous nature of diagnosing it means that anyone can become transgender. Hell, I've had several trans people try to convince me that I'm transgender. Though I don't exhibit all the traits of a typical man, I think peer-to-peer diagnoses are very immature, especially when life-changing medication is involved. So, let's get back to Matt Walsh's question. What is a woman? If you ask me what a woman is, I would say a woman is an adult human with XX chromosomes, and in some rare cases, a brain better adjusted to an XX chromosome body born into the body of a man, or an XY chromosome body that, of course, feels uncomfortable as a result of this discrepancy. The problem with this definition is that conservatives could argue the validity of the existence of every individual trans person on a case-by-case basis with plausible deniability. Until science develops to the point where we can check the brain of humans and see a male or female brain, or until I am disproved about my idea of cerebral gender, if we stand our ground as trans people and trans allies, the conservatives will eventually give up on calling us attack helicopters. Chapter 3. The Slippery Slope. A lot of people say the left are incredibly self-destructive, and in some if not most cases this is very true. The nature of women's sports is being threatened as a result of maximizing inclusivity. For anyone who miraculously isn't aware of the transgenderism sports issue, we have more and more transgender females winning first place in women's sports. The thing that I hate about this so much, the thing that makes me loathe the left, is the idea that excluding trans women who have significant biological strengths compared to born women from these sports is on the basis of attacking their identity. Heads up, it isn't. This is when it's always funny that leftists never talk about trans men during discourse. I am 100% fine with trans men competing in men's sports, and that's why I say it has nothing to do with identity, but rather physical ability. There seems to be this misconception that, like bathrooms, we originally segregated sports because we needed division between the sexes. No, we segregated sports because transgenderism wasn't recognized and women weren't able to compete with men. That's why we have women's sports. That's why women's basketballs are smaller. That's why the women's three-point line is closer to the net. I don't want it to sound like I'm talking tons of shit on women, but by God do they suck at basketball! On the other side of the political spectrum, conservatives will argue that trans men shouldn't compete with men, and as a result, these big burly trans men who have taken hormones for years will beat the shit out of women trying to compete. Then the conservatives get mad again because these trans men are using their meds to win more instead of admitting that segregation is a problem sometimes. So should trans people be excluded from sports altogether? No, I don't think so. I know this is going to be really hard, but I feel like trans women should be evaluated to see if they have reasonable physical capabilities compared to born women. Right now, trans femme athletes have to provide proof that they had taken HRT for enough time. The problem is that the time prescribed by, in this case, the WNBA, isn't tailored to each person, and everyone develops at different rates. Sometimes HRT can do literally nothing to the body as a result of interfering substances, e.g. smoking cigarettes. I think trans women should be evaluated to see if they are close enough to the average female. However, another problem will arise when, even after said evaluation, the trans women come in first place every time. If the Michael Jordan of the WNBA was a trans femme, there would still be outrage. My proposed system isn't perfect, but it's better than what we have now. As for trans men, let them play. What are we doing? Chapter 4. Suicide. I'm not going to go into this pretending to be a mental health expert. There's a lot of reasons why people kill themselves. The fact is, suicide rates are high among trans people. According to the National Library of Medicine, 82% of trans people have thought about killing themselves, and 40% have tried to kill themselves. This is a really sad statistic, and I'm afraid I know the reason for why this number is so high. Once again, take what I'm saying with a grain of salt, but I think trans people are more prone to suicide because it's impossible to fully complete a physical transition. Right now, bottom surgery doesn't work. It can have horrible side effects like an inability to orgasm, life-threatening infections. On top of this, it looks far from the real thing. I don't want to sugarcoat this because the reality is, this is genital mutilation. The results of these surgeries are not good. I would recommend to any trans person watching this to not get a surgery until technology is advanced enough to where you can get a real penis or a real vagina. This isn't something you can reverse. So that, on top of the varying effects of HRT, somewhat puts trans people in a carrot and stick situation. The carrot being a beautiful body, opposite of what you were given at birth. The stick being modern science. As I'm typing this all out, it really makes me sympathetic to this lifestyle. To any trans people who feel hopeless, I did too. Tupac once said, "If you can make it through the night, there's a brighter day." So stay strong. I know whenever a big celebrity commits suicide, people say, help is available as a big virtue signal. But if anyone just wants a community or even a friend, no matter your beliefs, reach out to me. Comments on a video, I read them all. Chapter 5. A Better Future for Transgenderism. What can we do? In a perfect world, I think people can safely come to the conclusion of their gender devoid of social pressure, and receive medicine and community to support them throughout their lives. I wish leftists wouldn't vilify people who question the transgender narrative, since it reflects poorly on the confidence in one's beliefs. But I also wish conservatives wouldn't treat trans people like alien fucking life forms. Trans people, be understanding of people genuinely trying to learn, and confident in your identity. Conservatives, please understand that trans people aren't too different from you and your friends. They might like IKEA sharks, but really they have the same goals in life that you do. Secure a family, die happy. At the end of the day, we all bleed red. And a final message to everyone watching: question authority! Yes,